Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dr. Brent and Coco Season 4 RSV Miniseries. We have some timely items to discuss, and I'm thankful for our Carl Public Relations team who have recently hooked me up with the folks locally at WAND News and the News Gazette. I also talked with Emily Hayes at Illinois Public Media today, so all of you who are local NPR listeners, keep your ears tuned, as I expect for her to air conversation in the next day or two. Finally, I have an interview with WCCU TV tomorrow, the 22nd. And for all of you who are Carl providers, watch your email tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for an announcement for a CME presentation that we are planning for noon on November 29th with myself, the perfectly fabulous Dr. Audra Thomas from the Carl Emergency Department, and the amazing Dr. Norma Kryline, pediatrician at Carl Richland, way down south where bananas grow. Don't miss that. RSV is here, and it's made itself known in a big way. That's right, you animals, we have a surge. No, not that kind of surge, not the kind that your mom wouldn't let you drink in the 90s because she thought it would make you super hyper. It's a surge of pediatric respiratory illnesses. This is important to talk about. Why? Well, because when COVID-19 drove a giant Mack truck through the adult population for over 2 years, children kind of ignored all of that. In fact, the surge that scared the adults didn't really do much to the kids. However, if you all followed the rules, and we all know that you did, that meant that you wore masks. You washed your hands, you stayed home when you were sick, you avoided touching your faces, you coughed and sneezed into the insides of your elbows, and you physically distanced when appropriate, and you protected yourselves and others while doing so. So good job. You literally saved lives when you did that. Then, when the vaccines were released, what did you knowledge seekers do? You did the right thing. You stood in line, and when it was your turn, you got your COVID vaccines and your boosters. Great job. That saved a lot of lives too. When the vaccines for kids were released, we talked about the risks and the benefits. We reviewed the data, and you made your choices, and a lot of kids were vaccinated. Since then, a lot of you and a lot of your kids have been boosted too. I'm proud of all of you. Here is where things get a little bit messy, my friends. By preventing the spread of COVID-19, which is a virus that's pretty darn contagious, you also prevented the spread of other, less contagious viruses. That includes all of the viruses that cause seasonal respiratory infections in kids, especially RSV. RSV was first isolated in the 1950s. It's an RNA virus just like coronavirus and influenza, but that does not mean that they're closely related because they're not. There are two main subtypes of RSV, A and B. Each of them have different members of their family trees, many different members. They're called clades. We'll talk about that in a future very boring episode. All of them are really good at mutating and evading our immune system, so reinfection is pretty darn common. However, pretty much 100% of children will be infected by age 3. We usually expect RSV and all the other respiratory viruses in kids to start their progression through the population in late October and continue to annoy our precious pediatric patients until the spring, usually about March or April. However, the pandemic has perturbed our perfect persistent program of predictable payoffs in pediatrics. In the winter of 2019 to 2020, our pediatric respiratory illnesses dropped basically to 0. In the winter of 2020 to 2021, they were completely non-existent. Then the powers that be chose to relax some of the mask mandates due to pandemic victories. This happened in late May of 2021. By June of 2021, hospitals all over the nation were inundated by pediatric patients with respiratory illnesses. We handled it, and by fall and winter, the numbers had dwindled. However, fast forward to now, the fall of 2022. Schools are back open. Masks are basically nowhere to be seen. but Chewy is right here, right there. Pandemic is over, you animals. Or is it? Well, while the coronavirus has progressively mutated to a version that is less deadly, and our protective measures and vaccines have helped to limit the impact on the adult population, we now have basically 2 years worth of children who have not been exposed to the normal respiratory viruses that we're used to them being infected with. To be clear, we have been expecting this. This is expected. However, we did not know when it would happen, nor did we know the intensity, timing, or volume that we would be dealing with. Right now, adults are doing okay. Kids, not so much. That, my friends, is why it's important to talk about. Even when things are their worst for kids, they don't get admitted as often as adults. Kids are amazing. They don't even know how to be sick. However, this also means that there are fewer hospitals that admit pediatric patients, fewer beds in those hospitals, fewer nurses, and fewer providers to care for them when they do get sick. So with Thanksgiving coming up, we will gather, we will feast, we will share of the turkey and of the ham and of the potatoes that are mashed. What else will we share? All of the germs. And the germs that simply give you some sniffles as an adult, my friends, can do much worse to a baby. So, what do you need to know? What do you need to look for? How is it diagnosed? How is it treated? Even better, how is it prevented? More to come soon, my friends. Until then, make sure you get that turkey out of the freezer and thaw it, if you haven't thought of it yet, and get ready to feast, you animals. I will see you next time. I won't make you wait long, and we'll talk more about this. So see you soon, and thanks for joining me today.